Hi everyone, and welcome back to EverlastCyber. We'll be going through practice questions and answers for the CompTIA Security Plus certification exam. In this video, we'll be going through some questions that will point out keywords and phrases that will help you figure out the correct answer while taking the exam. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Question 1. A security administrator is implementing a strategy to limit the spread of malware within the network by ensuring that infected devices are unable to communicate with critical systems. Which of the following is the best mitigation technique to achieve this? A. Patching. B. Segmentation. C. Encryption. D. ACL. Patching helps to fix vulnerabilities. However, it does not actively limit malware spread within the network. Segmentation, on the other hand, divides the network into smaller isolated segments or zones, and this limits the ability of malware to spread from infected devices to critical systems by restricting the network communication paths. So, encryption protects data confidentiality, but it doesn't stop the spread of malware or network communication control. While ACL can restrict traffic, but it is usually applied on specific devices or interfaces. Based on these explanations, the best mitigation technique to achieve what we want from the question would be option B, segmentation, because segmentation divides the network into smaller isolated segments. So if there is a malware attack on one segment, it wouldn't spread to the other segments. So it stops the spread of the malware to critical systems because the network communication paths are restricted. Question 2. Brian is investigating a system crash after a user imputed an unusually long string of characters into a web application's login form. The application became unresponsive and later allowed unintended code execution. Which of the following vulnerabilities is the most likely cause of this issue? A. Malicious updates. B. Race condition. C. Memory injection. D. Buffer overflow. Let's look at the options now. For option A malicious update refers to a software update that contains malicious code, and it is often from a compromised or untrusted source. Based on the question, it is unrelated to user input or string length. Option B, race condition, involves two or more processes or threads accessing shared resources in a way that causes unpredictable behavior. This is more related to a timing issue rather than input size, so that is not our answer. Memory injection in option C is not a standard term, so we shouldn't confuse this with code injection. In option D, buffer overflow occurs when a program writes more data to a buffer than it was allocated to hold. Now, it often allows attackers to crash the system or execute arbitrary code. This description matches perfectly with what we have in the scenario. So our answer here would be option D, buffer overflow. Question 3. A cybersecurity analyst is examining a breach of a government website that involved homepage defacement and the exposure of confidential files. The attackers seem driven by political or social motives rather than monetary gain. What type of threat actor is most likely behind this incident? A. Hacktivists. B. Nation states. C. Organized crime. D. Unskilled attacker. Let's break down the key elements from the question. So first of all, the home page was defaced. Secondly, confidential documents were leaked. And thirdly, the attackers are motivated by political or social causes, not financial gain. These characteristics are strongly associated with hacktivists. Now, who are hacktivists? Hacktivists are individuals or groups who carry out cyber attacks to promote political, social, or ideological messages. The website defacements and leaked documents here are to raise awareness or protest, and this is a typical tactic for hacktivists. Let's look at the other options. Nation state actors are government backed and they typically engage in espionage or sabotage against other countries. While they may leak data, their motivation is strategic advantage and not activism. Organized crime are threat actors that are financially motivated, so their main aim is to steal data for profit rather than political reasons. An unskilled attacker is also known as a script kiddie. These individuals lack deep knowledge and often deface sites just for fun or for bragging rights. They are not focused on political or social causes, and they are not even capable of leaking confidential documents from secure systems. So based on this explanation, the type of threat actor that is likely behind the incident we have in the scenario is option A, hacktivists. Question 4. Moses is investigating unauthorized remote access attempts on a corporate network. He needs to implement the best detective control to log and monitor these attempts in real time. Which of the following control types should he implement? A, physical, B, technical, C, managerial, D, operational. Physical controls are like security guards, surveillance cameras, and locks. They protect the physical environment. However, they are not used for monitoring network access. Technical controls, on the other hand, involves firewalls, intrusion detection or prevention systems, log monitoring tools, and SIM systems. So these are the best suited for detective controls in real time on networks. Managerial controls are policy-based controls such as security policies, risk assessments, or incident response plans. They are not directly involved in real-time monitoring. Operational controls involves day-to-day procedures like security awareness training or backup procedures. They are more manual and they are not typically real-time or technologically driven. Now, since Moses needs to log and monitor unauthorized remote access attempts in real time, the best would be for him to implement a technical control like a SIM or an IDS IPS. So based on the options we have, the best option is option B. Technical controls are best suited for detective controls in real time on networks. Question 5. A company is migrating its workload to a cloud environment but still needs to maintain some critical services on premises for compliance reasons. This setup requires careful integration between cloud-based and locally hosted resources. Which of the following best describes this architectural model? A, hybrid, B, IAC, C, microservices, D, serverless. A hybrid cloud architecture combines on-premises infrastructure with cloud-based resources, and this allows organizations to retain certain workloads locally while taking advantage of cloud scalability and flexibility. Option B, IAC, or Infrastructure as Code, refers to the automation of infrastructure provisioning using code. It is a methodology or toolset, not an architectural model. Microservices is an application architecture style where applications are broken into loosely coupled services. However, it doesn't describe the deployment environments like we have in the question. In serverless computing, Cloud providers automatically manage the infrastructure. It runs entirely in the cloud, not in a hybrid setup that includes on-premises system. Going back to our question, because the company is using both cloud and on-premises environments and requires integration between them, the best architectural model to describe this setup would be option A, the hybrid architectural model. Question 6. A network administrator wants to harden the security of network infrastructure by preventing unauthorized devices from connecting and mitigating layer 2 attacks such as MAC flooding and ARP spoofing. Which of the following should be the primary focus of security hardening in this scenario? A. Cloud infrastructure. B. Switches. C. Servers. D. IoT devices. Cloud infrastructure is not relevant to Layer 2 security within an on-premise LAN. Layer 2 attacks like the MAC flooding and ARP spoofing happens in local networks and not in the cloud. Looking at the scenario, it involves preventing unauthorized device connections and preventing layer 2 attacks. So these are network level threats that occurs at layer 2, which is the data link layer of the OSI model. The devices that operate at this layer are network switches. So our answer is actually option B. But let's look at the other options. In option C, while securing servers is important, they are not responsible for managing network traffic at layer 2. And of course, they will not prevent unauthorized network access. IoT devices are actually vulnerable endpoints, and securing them does not mitigate layer 2 attacks. So our answer here is option B. Switches manage traffic at layer 2, and this makes them the primary target and defense point for these types of attacks. So to mitigate such threats, administrators can enable port security, they can enable MAC address limiting, they can also use DHCP snooping to avoid the kind of attacks listed in the scenario. Question 7. A company wants to ensure that employees understand what activities are allowed and prohibited when using corporate resources, including internet access, email, and company-owned devices. Which of the following policies is the best to define these rules? A. SDLC. B. NDA. C. Acceptable Use Policy. D. MOU. SDLC, or Software Development Lifecycle, is the process used in software development to design, develop, test, and deploy applications. It does not relate to user behavior or resource usage policies. An NDA is a legal contract that prohibits the disclosure of confidential information. It deals with confidentiality and not the acceptable use of company resources. Option C, Acceptable Use Policy, outlines what users can and cannot do with company technology resources. It covers the use of internet and email. It covers the use of company-owned devices. It places restrictions on downloading software or accessing certain websites, as well as security and data protection practices. An MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, is an agreement between two parties that outlines intentions, but it is not a policy document used to govern employee conduct. So based on the explanations, our answer here would be option C, Acceptable Use Policy. Question 8. A security engineer is creating an authentication system for a healthcare database containing sensitive patient information. To protect the data from unauthorized changes and ensure its accuracy and reliability, which core security principle should take priority? A. Confidentiality. B. Non-repudiation. C. Availability. D. Integrity. Confidentiality ensures that data is accessible only to authorized individuals, While this is important in healthcare, it doesn't address unauthorized modification of data, so that is not our answer. Non-repudiation refers to ensuring that someone cannot deny their actions, such as sending a message or accessing a record. This is very useful for accountability. However, it is not the main principle for protecting data from alteration. Availability ensures that systems and data are accessible when needed, and this is important for system reliability. However, it still does not address unauthorized changes to the data. Integrity focuses on ensuring that data is accurate, consistent, and unaltered by unauthorized users. In a healthcare setting, this is crucial because even a small unauthorized change to a patient record could lead to dangerous outcomes. So our answer here is option D. Question 9. A user receives a text message claiming to be from their bank, urging them to click a link and verify their account information. The user clicks the link, which directs them to a fake login page designed to steal their credentials. Which of the following is the most likely threat actor used in this attack? A. Unsupported system. B. SMS. C. Email. D. Removable device. Looking at the scenario, this describes a phishing attack delivered via text message. And this is specifically known as smishing, that is SMS plus phishing. Here, the user receives a text message which claims to be from their bank, and then it asks them to click a link, leading them to a fake page that is designed to steal their credential. This is a classic case of smishing because the attack was delivered via SMS. So our answer here is option B. If it were delivered through an email, that is traditional phishing. But the question clearly stated that the message came via a text and not an email. Question 10. A cybersecurity analyst is implementing a cryptographic solution to protect sensitive corporate data in order to ensure that encrypted data can still be accessed in case the primary encryption key is lost or an employee with access leaves the company. Which of the following is the best solution? A. Key escrow. B. PFS. C. Salting. D. Key stretching. Key escrow is a cryptographic key management technique where a copy of the encryption key is held in escrow by a trusted third party or at a secure location. This ensures that if the primary key is lost or if an employee with access leaves the company, the encrypted data can still be decrypted using the escrowed key. In option B, PFS or perfect forward secrecy, this ensures that session keys cannot be compromised even if the long-term keys are compromised later. It is about preventing past communications from being decrypted, but it doesn't say anything about key recovery. Salting adds random data to passwords before hashing in order to prevent them from being susceptible to rainbow table attacks. Key stretching increases the difficulty of brute force attacks by making the key derivation more computationally expensive. However, it doesn't address key recovery. Based on these explanations, the best answer would be option A. Question 11. A network engineer is configuring a security device that must actively block malicious traffic before it reaches internal systems. The device needs to operate inline to prevent threats in real time. Which of the following is the best solution? A. IPS. B. IDS. C. Proxy server. D. Jump server. IPS or Intrusion Prevention System monitors network traffic in real time, and because it is placed inline, it can actively block, drop, or reject malicious traffic before it reaches internal systems. IDS is a passive monitoring tool. It detects and alerts on suspicious traffic, but it does not block it because it is not inline. A proxy server forwards requests between clients and servers, and while it can offer filtering and caching, it is not designed to primarily block malicious traffic. A jump server is used to access and manage devices in a segmented network securely. This is, however, an administrative tool and not a real-time threat prevention system. So based on the explanation, the best solution will be implementing an IPS, an intrusion prevention system. Question 12. A security administrator needs to identify all active devices, open ports, and running services on the corporate network to detect unauthorized assets and security risks. Which of the following is the best method to accomplish this? A. Ownership. B. Inventory. C. Classification. D. Enumeration. Ownership refers to assigning responsibility for an asset. It doesn't involve technical discovery or scanning of devices. Inventory involves maintaining a list of known assets. However, it doesn't involve actively scanning or discovering unknown or unauthorized systems. Classification is about categorizing data or assets based on sensitivity or value. It also does not involve identifying or scanning devices. Enumeration, on the other hand, involves actively scanning the network to gather information such as active hosts, open ports, running services, and system details. This is exactly what the administrator needs to detect unauthorized devices and assess security risks. So our answer here is option D, enumeration. Question 13. A security team needs to evaluate new and evolving threats to the organization's assets on an ongoing basis rather than relying on periodic reviews. Which of the following risk assessment types is the best approach to achieve this? A. Continuous. B. Ad hoc. C. One time. D. Recurring. The scenario here emphasizes the need to evaluate new and evolving threats on an ongoing basis rather than relying on periodic reviews. This basically describes a continuous risk assessment approach because it involves real-time or near real-time monitoring and analysis of threats, vulnerabilities, and risks. So this approach is ideal for modern environments where the risks changes rapidly. Ad hoc is only performed as needed in response to specific incidents or triggers. So this can't be used. A single risk assessment, usually done during the initial stages of a project, is described as one time, but it does not accommodate evolving threats over time. Recurring means being conducted at regular intervals, such as monthly or annually. It is actually better than a one-time assessment, but still an ongoing assessment, which is a continuous assessment, is necessary in order to evaluate new and evolving threats to the organization's assets. So the risk type to use would be option A, continuous assessments. Question 14. James is reviewing an organization's change management process after a recent unauthorized system modification caused a critical application to fail. In order to prevent this issue in the future, what is the best practice to implement to ensure all changes are properly vetted before being deployed? A. Rollback plan. B. Approval process. C. Version control. D. Continuous monitoring. A rollback plan is important for reversing changes if something goes wrong, but it doesn't prevent unauthorized changes from being made in the first place. Approval process ensures that every change is reviewed and authorized by the appropriate stakeholders before deployment. This helps to prevent unauthorized, untested, or risky changes, thereby reducing the chance of critical failures. Version control tracks changes in code or configuration. However, it doesn't enforce approval or authorization for making changes. While continuous monitoring is useful for detecting issues after deployment, but it also does not prevent unauthorized changes before they can happen. So the best practice to implement would be option B, approval process. This ensures that every change is reviewed and authorized by appropriate stakeholders before deployment. Question 15. A technology company develops a proprietary algorithm that gives it a competitive advantage in the market. In order to prevent competitors from accessing or replicating it, the company implements strict access controls and NDAs. Which of the following best describes this type of data? A. Regulated. B. IP. C. Financial information. D. Trade secrets. Regulated information refers to data protected by laws and regulations. So a proprietary algorithm is not necessarily regulated by law in this sense. IP or intellectual property. For this, while trade secrets fall under the umbrella of intellectual property, this option is too broad. Intellectual property is too broad because it can also refer to patents, copyrights, trademarks, and these involve formal registration. Financial information refers to data like budgets, profit or loss statements, and other monetary records. The algorithm is not financial data. Trade secret is any confidential business information such as formulas, processes, or algorithms that can provide a competitive edge and is protected through secrecy. So, based on the scenario we have, the company needs to prevent competitors from accessing or replicating the algorithm that they have. So, the best answer would be option D, trade secrets. Question 16. A security analyst is testing a web application by interacting with it in real time to find security flaws that only appear during execution. Which of the following is the best identification method for this approach? A. Dynamic analysis. B. Static analysis. C. Threat field. D. Package monitoring. For this, we'll be going with option A. Dynamic analysis is the process of testing and evaluating an application while it is running, and this is typically done in real time or in a simulated environment. This will allow the security analyst to observe how the application behaves during execution and to identify runtime vulnerabilities such as memory leaks, logic errors, authentication flaws, or even input validation issues. So this is the best identification method based on the scenario that we have. Question 17. A company is working with a cloud service provider and wants to ensure it can review the provider's security controls and compliance practices when requested. Which of the following contract provisions is the best way to allow this level of oversight? A. Supply chain analysis. B. Penetration testing. C. Right to audits. D. Independent assessments. Supply chain analysis refers to evaluating risks in third-party vendors or suppliers. While it helps with overall risk assessment, it does not grant oversight or access rights. Penetration testing is an active test of systems for vulnerabilities and often requires permission from the provider. It, however, does not grant contractual rights to review controls or processes. A right to audit clause in a contract gives the customer the legal right to review and assess the cloud provider's security controls, compliance processes, and operations. This is essential for verifying that the provider meets agreed security standards, maintains transparency and accountability, as well as ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements. Independent assessments are performed by third parties, but they may not give the customer direct control or access over when and how to retrieve or review these details. So the answer here is option C, right to audit. Question 18. A cybersecurity analyst notices that multiple systems on the network are experiencing high CPU usage and unusual network traffic, and several additional devices were compromised within minutes without user interaction. Which of the following is the most likely type of malware responsible for this attack? A. Logic bomb. B. Worm. C. Trojan. D. Keylogger. A logic bomb is a malware that is triggered by a specific condition or event. However, it doesn't spread by itself across the network. A worm is a type of malware that self-replicates and spreads rapidly across networks without requiring user interaction. The symptoms, as described in the scenario, matches a worm infection. So one, there is high CPU usage, and this is usually due to propagation and payload execution. There is unusual network traffic because the worms are spreading over the network by themselves. And then multiple devices are compromised quickly and automatically. A Trojan requires user interaction to be installed, and it also does not self-replicate or spread autonomously. A keylogger records keystrokes silently, however, it doesn't cause high CPU or network spread. So our answer here based on the scenario is a worm because it self-replicates and it doesn't need any human interaction or any user interaction. It self-replicates on its own across networks. Question 19. A company receives a lot of traffic and wants to ensure that its web application remains available. Even if one of its servers fail, the IT team is looking for a solution to best suit their needs. Which of the following is the best solution to achieve this? A. Clustering. B. Cold sites. C. Load balancing. D. Geographic dispersion. Clustering refers to linking servers so that they can work together as one system. This is often for high availability. A cold site is a backup site with infrastructure but no active data. It is usually used for disaster recovery and not real-time availability. Load balancing distributes incoming network traffic across multiple servers so that if one server fails, the traffic can be redirected to the remaining healthy servers. And this ensures that the web application remains available without interruption. This improves reliability, availability, and scalability. Geographic dispersion distributes resources across multiple locations in order to reduce the risk of regional failure. However, it doesn't directly balance traffic across servers for availability. Based on the scenario we have in the question, the best solution in order to achieve what the company wants is option C, load balancing. Question 20. A security analyst needs to track network traffic, server health, and firewall activity to detect potential threats and performance issues across the enterprise. Which of the following monitoring types is the best choice for this task? A. Event correlation. B. Application monitoring. C. Configuration management. D. Infrastructure monitoring. Event correlation is a process that analyzes and correlates events from multiple sources in order to identify patterns, but it is not actually a monitoring type. Application monitoring focuses on monitoring the performance and availability of software applications, but not the underlying network or server infrastructure. Configuration management manages and tracks configuration changes in IT systems rather than real-time health or performance monitoring, while infrastructure monitoring involves tracking the health and performance of underlying IT components such as the network traffic, firewall activity, and server health. So this monitoring type helps to detect performance issues and also potential security threats across the enterprise's infrastructure. So our answer here is option D. Question 21. A company violates industry security regulations and is restricted from operating in certain markets until compliance is restored. Which of the following is the most likely consequence? A. Loss of license. B. Sanctions. C. Attestation. D. Remediation plan. Loss of license could be a consequence. However, it is more specific and it is not always the immediate action. When a company violates industry security regulations and fails to comply, sanctions are often imposed. Now, sanctions can include fines or penalties. It can include legal actions or other regulatory consequences. It can also include being restricted from operating the business, that is, being barred from certain markets. Attestation is a formal statement or certification that compliance has been achieved, but it's not a consequence of violation, so it doesn't correlate to the question. Remediation plan is a corrective action plan to fix compliance issues. This is also not a consequence. In the question, it's asking which of the following is the most likely consequence of a company violating industry security regulations. And our answer would be option B, sanctions. Question 22. A security administrator is configuring security controls to stop unauthorized access attempts. The administrator needs to implement the best control type that will actively block threats. Which of the following security controls should be used? A. Deterrent. B. Corrective. C. Preventive. D. Detective. Deterrent controls are intended to discourage attacks, but it doesn't actively block the threats. Corrective controls helps to fix or recover from a security incident after it has already occurred, so it's not preventing it from occurring. Detective controls are designed to detect and alert on suspicious activities, however, it doesn't block them. While preventive controls are designed to actively block or stop unauthorized access attempts or threats, even before they happen. Some examples of preventive controls are firewalls, authentication mechanism, intrusion prevention system, and access control lists. So this control prevents security incidents by stopping the malicious activity at the outset. Question 23. A network engineer needs to implement a solution that allows for centralized management of network traffic and dynamic adjustments to routing and security policies without requiring manual configuration on each device. Which of the following best describes this architecture model? A. SDN. B. Air-gapped. C. Microservices. D. Physical isolation. For this, we'll be going with option A. SDN, or software-defined networking, is an architecture model that centralizes network management by separating the control plane from the data plane. It allows dynamic adjustments to routing and security policies through a centralized controller, and it doesn't need any manual reconfiguration of each device. So that's why the option A is the answer described as the architecture model. Question 24. A network administrator needs to filter traffic based on IP addresses and user roles before it reaches critical systems. Which of the following is the best method to achieve this? A. Access lists. B. Screened subnets. C. Firewall rules. D. Ports and protocols. For this, we'll be going with option C. Firewall rules are designed to filter network traffic based on multiple criteria, which includes IP addresses, ports and protocols, and user roles. Firewalls can enforce granular security policies to control what traffic is allowed to reach critical systems. So that's why we're going with this. For the other options, access lists are used on routers or switches to filter traffic based on IP addresses, but it doesn't handle user roles. Screen subnets are network segments with additional security layers, but it is a network design concept rather than a specific filtering method. Ports and protocols is just one aspect of filtering by itself. It, however, does not control user roles or IP addresses comprehensively. So that's why the best answer is firewall rules, because firewall rules can filter traffic based on IP addresses, ports, protocols, and user identity or roles. Firewall rules also provides a more granular and dynamic control, and it is designed to protect critical systems with advanced policy enforcement. So that's why that's the best and most flexible method to achieve this. Question 25. A security administrator is implementing a new access control system to ensure that only authorized users can log into corporate systems. The system must first verify the identity of each user before granting access. Which of the following is the best security process to implement? A. Accounting. B. Authenticating systems. C. Authorization. D. Authenticating people. Accounting tracks and logs user activities after access is granted. However, it doesn't verify identity. Authenticating systems verifies the identity of devices or systems, but not of users. Authorization grants or denies permission based on user identity. However, this only comes after authentication. Authenticating people refers to the process of verifying the identity of a user before granting access. So this ensures that only authorized individuals can log in on corporate systems. So our answer here is option D, authenticating people. Question 26. An organization is hit with ransomware. However, no data was stolen and the attack was not politically motivated. Which of the following was the most likely motivation? A. Revenge. B. Espionage. C. Financial gain. D. Disruption or chaos. For this, we'll be going with option C. Ransomware attacks typically aim to extort money by encrypting data and demanding payment for its release. In this, it's already stated in the question that the organization was hit with ransomware. No data was stolen and the attack was not physically motivated. So it's clearly for financial gain, because ransomware encrypts data and then demands payments for that data to be decrypted. Question 27. A network administrator needs to enforce device authentication before allowing access to the corporate network. The solution must support both wired and wireless connections and integrate with a radio server. Which of the following is the best security control to implement? A. WAF. B. NGFW. C. 802.1x. D. Port security. WAF, or Web Application Firewall, protects web applications, but it is not used for device or network access authentication. Next Generation Firewall provides advanced security, but it is not specifically designed for device level authentication on the network. 802.1x is a network access control protocol that is used to enforce device authentication before granting access to the network. It works with both wired and wireless connections, and it integrates with a radio server for centralized authentication. Port security controls access at the switch port level, but it doesn't integrate with the radio server. So our answer here is option C, 802.1x. Question 28. A company wants to allow employees to use their corporate credentials to access multiple third-party cloud applications without creating separate accounts for each service. Which of the following is the best solution to achieve this? A. Federation. B. SSO. C. Identity proofing. D. provisioning and deprovisioning. Federation allows users to access multiple third-party cloud applications using their corporate credentials. However, this is done through a trust relationship between the identity provider and the service providers. This means that the users don't need to create or manage separate accounts for each service. Some common federation protocols include OpenID Connect and SAML. Some people might think the answer is SSO, but SSO allows users to log in once and access multiple services. It only works within the same identity network, but federation extends this ability to external services. Remember in the question, it says the company wants their employees to access multiple third-party cloud applications using their corporate credentials. So federation is the most likely answer here. But let's take a look at the other two options. Identity proofing verifies that a user is who they claim to be, but it doesn't help with cross-service authentication. While provisioning, deprovisioning automates account creation or removal across systems, but it doesn't manage authentication or credential reuse. So our answer here is option A. Question 29. A security team implements an organization-wide program that sends fake phishing emails to access employees' ability to identify scams. Those who interact with the links are directed to a training page on phishing threats. What is the best term for this type of security awareness activity? A. Incident response. B. Phishing campaign. C. Social engineering prevention. D. Phishing recognition. Our answer here is option B. A phishing campaign, in the context we have here, refers to a simulated and controlled exercise that is designed to test employees' abilities to recognize phishing attempts. These campaigns are commonly used in security awareness training, so employees are intentionally sent these fake phishing emails, and those who click on the malicious links are directed to an educational page. This helps to train and assess staff on identifying phishing threats in a safe environment. Question 30. Which of the following is the primary purpose of implementing multi-factor authentication? A. To encrypt data in transit. B. To prevent phishing attacks. C. To enhance user convenience. D. To increase access security by requiring multiple verification methods. For this, we'll be going with option D. This is the main purpose of multi-factor authentication. It strengthens authentication by requiring users to provide two or more factors. Now, there are basically three factors. There's something you know, which can be a password or a PIN. There's something you have, which can be an authentication app or a smart card. And then there's something you are, which is biometrics, that's fingerprints, retina scan, facial recognition. This makes unauthorized access much harder, even if one factor like a password is compromised. This brings us to the end of the practice questions and answers for the Security Plus certification exam. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. And also hit the subscribe button for when our next interactive video will be dropping. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.